Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are and what you're doing. But we are like the Backstreet Boys. We don't care where you are, who you are, or what you're from, whatever the lyrics are. Oh, the Backstreet Boys. What a time to be alive. Growing up, seeing them all in white, just dancing, just making it happen, just raining. And what an era. Wow, crazy. And coming to you, talking about lead generation today or finding work or, whatever you want to call it. It's just kind of like where your next job is coming from. And I do believe everyone has like what I would like to call like an organic network, you might say. So there's probably like if you started your business, chances are you started doing some cashies, the C word, the C monster, if you know what I'm saying. You started doing some like cashies or side hustle job while you're a third year apprentice and you got some cash in the wallet and your wallet's bulking out, then your wallet bulked out of cash and you started chucking some in your cash drawer, then your cash drawer started bulking out, so you started to get a whole room dedicated to your cash, and someone's like, what's in there? And you said nothing. Don't go in there, the baby's sleeping, but it's just cash, just stacked, packed to the rafters, right? Psycho. And and then probably you started your business and you had a friend, you started working for friends and family first and foremost. And I just want to highlight as well, like, I don't know. I know some people go like, "Don't work with your friends and family," and I just think like, why not? There's a natural trust there, of course there is, and if you're good at your job and you're honest and you do the right thing, and what do? Do you need to offer a discount? And sometimes people are happy to pay the person that they trust. It's like if you're going to buy something, you might have to buy it from somewhere. You might as well buy it from someone and at least they get the profits from it. And if you want to discount something, fantastic. But please, if you're going to discount something to anyone, and I say this a lot, just make sure that it's a conscious decision to discount, and it's not just that you're insecure about talking about money or anything like that. So chances are you start with your family, friends, and then they tell someone, and then if you grow your business based on that word of mouth, it does have an expiry date, and that expiry date is going to be determined on, if you've lived in an area your whole life. Like I started my business out of the Sutherland Shire, aka God's country. oh man, anyone that you meet now, they're like, oh, the riots, and you're like, oh no, that's the worst connotation to be associated with. It was a bad time. I'm so thankful to say I was not involved or anywhere near that at that point, but disappointing. Anyway, hopefully we've moved on from there. But yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, so I started my business where I grew up, where I went to school, where my family sort of grew up as well. I had a couple of older brothers, and people know people, and especially if you're part of a community group, whether that's footy or surfing or checkers or chess. It doesn't really matter what it is, but like chances are you meet people and people know people, and you'll have that sort of organic friendship group that'll chip you into things, and lots of my friends just started. That was going to be a builder, and then around that sort of early 20s was surrounded by a really, like, I don't know the best way to put it, maybe like I don't know if high performing is the best way to put it, because maybe we weren't the highest performers at that point or whatever, but very driven group. Everyone's like, we're going to work for ourselves. It's like, yeah, charge, like to infinity and beyond. Just go, like, let's do it. No idea what we're doing. Like, it's so funny. You look back at probably 10 of my friends in this circle, like this friendship group, just started their own business, and we're all throwing each other work. And it was kind of a really fun time. And we're all working really hard, and there's something to be really proud of when you're working like that. And we've all established something of value, and we've all gotten a lot out of each other. And if you're one of those people, you know exactly who you are and what sort of time I'm talking about. But yeah, so you have that organic network. Sorry, but that organic network is going to have an expiry date. So it's going to come time where you will need to find work. It's really important to understand that. Whether you might be like, oh, I've never had to find work before, ever. And if you grow your team, chances are you'll land in a position where you need to meet some new people, and then you might need to find some work. And if you don't have to find any work ever in your business sort of career, chances are you'll be lucky, maybe elite. I don't know even how to describe that. Like, you might have been established for 50 years and you've taken over your dad's company, and then you've got so much work, so I'm turning back work. And one of the highlights for my career, electrical career, was I think being established after 10 years. And when people call you and you just think the trade gods have ordained this conversation. So it's like, I get messages all the time off our members like, oh, I got a call from this person, like a marketing person or this or that or whatever. And it was a cold call. And like, it sounded so good. Like, I'm going to sign up for this thing with $700 or $1,000 or whatever. And I'm like, have you heard of these people before that? And like, no, I haven't. I'm like, well, how do they get your number? like, why do they want to work with you? Like, do you have a friend or a common acquaintance, or like, does your cats know each other? Like, what's going on here? It's a big question to ask yourself whenever someone gets in contact with you. Ask yourself, is this ordained from the trade gods, right? Maybe. But if there's no in and they've scrolled through 15 pages of Google to get to you and they're calling, chances are they're hunting for the cheapest price. If you ever see an email come from a contracts administrator, chances are they are hunting from the cheapest price, and because there's no relationship. And I think I've said this on a previous podcast, but like, I was always worried that if you quote for someone you don't have a relationship with, what happens if it turns south? What happened if everything turns south, and like, how are you going to get your money, right? Are you going to, Stewie from Family Guy it? Where's my money? Where's my money? Where's the money? You're going to Fat Tony it? My wife, she's like, where's the money? When am I going to get the money? And so on, right? Like, how are you going to get the money? And it's very scary. I remember being in this situation where we were owed heaps of money, and I was sitting in this meeting with a couple of people I knew, like friends of friends. And they were like, and I remember sitting there, and we had this like job for them, and they were intimidating characters, you might say, but they liked me, and I was working for them. And I remember telling them about this situation I had where I was owed heaps of money and potentially going to go through court. And I remember they just looked at me, and he goes, like, and he just made a phone call. He goes, yeah. And he said the person's name who owed me money over the phone to someone, right? And he goes, okay, sweet. And he looks at me and he goes, yeah, we can do it, but we just want 10%. And I was like, oh no, I don't know what's happening. Like, I'm not comfortable in this space. Yeah, thanks so much for the offer. But yeah, no, please. I don't know what was going to happen there. You can probably put two and two together in what was going on, but I was like, oh no, I'm a bit scared. Like, anyway, and interestingly enough, you got to be careful who you work for. So, I think one of the most common things people do is in lead generation, when they're quiet, they start reaching out to everyone. And I think you've got to recognize that not everyone may be a good fit for your company. Not everyone might want to pay your rates. Not everyone the danger is that, you would take work for the sake of having work. And that's a very scary place to be in. It's like, oh, I'll drop my pants on this price just to get the job. But in reality, you'd be better off at the beach. If you're going to make no money on that job, or you're going to quote it so tight just to keep people busy. And I get it. Like, if you're a numbers person and you really understand the dynamics and the nature of the numbers in your business, you might be like, I'll take a hit here, but I know the sun will shine in 3 weeks' time just to get us through this gap. So if you're making, that decision occasionally or rarely, maybe that's cool. But if you're consistently making those decisions, just being busy for the sake of busy, and you see too much focus on growth, in my opinion, and oh yeah, we grew, like, we 4x'd our revenue and 10 times this, and I've got 12 staff members now, and I used to have one, and I've got 20, and that's cool. And I dare say, like, I sit with a lot of people. I see a lot of guys. I see a lot of girls too. That's the water boy, right? Adam Stan, like, comedy genius. Actually, Elodie and I last night were like, she was like, remember Austin Powers? I was like, holy crap. Like, I do. She was like, do you quote him in your podcast? And I was like, not as much as, say, like The Simpsons or Old School or like, one of those Will Ferrell movies, but I was like, sometimes I say, look at me in a nutshell, like, and they were like, let's watch it. Let's watch Austin Powers. So we started watching it last night, and she was like, we just realized the guy's potentially a comedy genius, right? And there's nothing quite like Will Ferrell in that. It's like, I'm still here. I'm just very badly burnt. If you know what I'm talking about, heaps good. If you don't, you're like, get off this topic, get back to the finding work. And we will get back to the finding work. So, Anyway, so just being busy for the sake of busy might not just do it for you, right? And just because someone's got 20 staff or 15 staff doesn't necessarily mean things are going well. I remember a stage of my life where it would have looked from the outside like everything's going really well, and I was falling to pieces, right? On the inside, we were like stressed. We had potentially the wrong team. We were owed money. You know, I was disorganized, disheveled. I was opening the computer every night at 10:45 p.m., staring aimlessly at it until 1:30 and going, better go to sleep now. Alarm goes off, 5:30, up in the car. I remember my first apprentice, Luke. I remember being so tired some mornings, and he would get on like the King. I'd pick him up from the Kingsway, so he lived like kind of near me, but pick him up from 5 minutes down the road from my house, heading towards the city from where we used to drive. And I remember driving past him so many times. I remember driving, forgetting my phone, like I gotta go back and get my phone. Just so tired. So I think you can push so hard for so long but not too long, so make sure you're looking after yourself in that sort of stint, and you're in it for the long haul potentially, but you're building an asset, and an asset is worth next to nothing if it needs you 60 hours a week to perform. One of the common things you hear all the time is like, nothing happens if I'm not on site, and I've got to be there, and I don't know, like we managed to make lots of things happen on lots of different sites when I wasn't there. Maybe not up to the maybe not up to the speed that you are. And that's why it's really important as you grow the business to update your price book, not to suit you, because you're probably the best person that's ever lived. That's cool. But maybe, you've got to be running at 130, 150% efficient. So when Steve comes into your team, as Steve's hitting, 105 to 120. So if a gentle breeze knocks Steve over, he's not moving back under the 100 mark, but you're still maintaining profitability. So anyway, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about finding work, and it's going to be a time where you probably wake up quiet, right? You wake up and sometimes it's like, we're going to work tomorrow. And it's like, what do I do? And I want to encourage you, you're only as good as what you were doing 3 to 6 months ago. So like, that's just to timestamp this, we're in April 2024. So if you're a bit quiet now, what were you doing in January, December, November? Chances are you were really busy and, oh my gosh, like not answering the phone, not getting back to people. And if that's the case, then you can't do that again. Your job's not to be a tool. Your job's not to be on the tools. Like maybe you're on like the office is where the money's made a lot. So were you diligent in finding that work? And if not, ask yourself why. If you were too busy on the tools, maybe that was an opportunity to hire someone. You could have got back to people, got those quotes out, and then stacked the work up in front of people and created that asset that you were born to create, right? Anyway, I want to encourage you, at some point you are going to probably find yourself in a position where you might need to chase down some work. And if you never find yourself in that position, you're either like quite a big company saying no to work. And this is what I was going to say before. One of the proudest moments for me was when people would call me, and like when I wasn't calling people for work, they were calling me, and like, we'd heard about you, we'd love to use you. And I was like, oh, how'd you get my number? If it was from Google, I'd be like, do. Like no, I don't know. Like we're so far down the ranks on that. Like our work was from a long-term clients over the years, and if a contracts admin from a company called I hadn't heard about, I'm like, you can politely get to the side. And so that was a really cool moment when the tide turns, and it's like you're not chasing people, but they're sort of chasing you to work with you. It's like a beautiful transaction or a moment in time. But yeah, so okay, you got to basically work out what do you do if you wake up quiet? What do you do? Are you looking for, and this is why it's so important when we close a month in Sparky Coach, we basically go, okay, how's the 1 to 2 week schedule, 2 to 4 week schedule, 1 to 3 month schedule. So how are you looking into the future? And if you're filling that out every single week or month, it's a really good indicator, like, holy crap, I need something for next week. And you got to think about it mathematically, right? Like probably 100% of people, or close to 100% of people, can give you work within a 12-month period, like within a 6 to 12-month period. There's a higher percentage of people, like most people would need an electrician over the course of a year. The people that need an electrician tomorrow, the percentage significantly drops down. You're talking like emergency sort of like Nicolas Cage movie, Will Smith's got snakes all over him, going like, "Get to the chopper, we've got no power, Billy, get to the chopper," right? You're talking like Tong Po kickboxer shitting the ice, dire straits, like, "Don't fight this guy, man, don't fight this guy," and he's like, "Argh, argh." If you don't know Kickboxer 1, Tong Po, get onto it, right? I don't want to hear about it. Just want to hear you watched it and send me a message and say, "I watched it, it was awesome," because that's what I want to hear. Right, and I want to encourage you, cold calls usually, an option is to cold call. You data scrape like 1,000 builders, or you work out who can give you repeat work and you data scrape, cool. Like, a cold call usually results in a cold response, in my opinion, because they don't know you, there's no relationship, and you've got to be quite, You've got to be quite strong mentally to cold call. Like, it's grueling. You're calling people, "Oh, hey, it's Greg from Crowie Electrical. Like, we do really good work with good people. Is there anything we can quote on?" And you can pretty much guarantee they'll almost 100% be price driven because you're chasing up. Now, you got to think about supply and demand, right? Like, if you need a subcontractor for tomorrow and it's for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, you will more than likely pay overs because you need a hole to be filled. So you might be, "Oh, cool, whatever, just pay that because it's just easiest to get it done and get that job out and move on to the next one." If a subcontractor calls you and says, "Oh, hey, we've got no work, what can you do?" Then what's happening here? You're like, "Well, I might not necessarily need you. Yes, it would be nice to have you, but the ship has turned, the tide has turned." And you can have that discussion about maybe they would accept less. And that's just supply and demand. That's like the property market or anything. If 2 people want something, or 3 people want something, or 5 people want something, the price organically and naturally goes up. Of course it does. If no one wants anything, then the price will maintain or stay or drop or whatever, right? So I would encourage you, right? If you take one thing out of this and one thing only, if you dance to one song and one song only, you know what it is. It's Black Eyed Peas, my homes. She's cold as ice, Oksana. Anyway, to take one thing out of this and one thing only, I would encourage you to ask yourself the question right now: who are my best 3 to 5 clients? Who are my best 3 to 5 clients? Who is your daddy and what does he do? Who are my best 3 clients and where do they come from, right? And this is interesting because I remember one time being so frustrated at this one builder who was a little bit difficult. You would have heard me talk about the lowercase passive aggressive sent from the iPhone emails that he would send as soon as I sent an invoice. And it was like my whole body just like, I feel sick. Like, and he's like, "Hey, you need to discount this and do this and this and this." And I was just like, I had to have a conversation with him and be like, "Hey, do you mind at least putting the caps lock on, baby? Like, do you mind at least like capitalizing the first letter of the sentence as the English language would demand of you?" So I remember just having that conversation, but I remember being a bit frustrated by that guy, and they were amazing. They were like, that was their one sort of thorn in the side, you might say. And this is why, if you're really busy and someone's doing something that annoys you, like whether it's they're not paying their bill on time, or they're challenging everything, or they're asking for discounts here because this happened, or they're not approving variations, you can't just like lose it. Eminem, "You better lose yourself in the builder, you dickhead." Like, you can't just lose it at people just because you were busy and you were tired and you were like burning out or whatever. You've got to just challenge. Okay, sweet. What's going on? What's going right here? That person had like 3 jobs. They were all at 2 pubs, and another one was going pretty well too. They'd pay their invoices like pretty much on time. He would just challenge some stuff. So I was like, okay, sweet. Everything's going good except that one thing. Can we just stop that challenge a little bit, or at least sit on it for a couple of days and don't write directly back to my email, And anyway, so part of it was me not taking it personally, and part of it was me sort of politely directing, "Hey, if you got a problem, say it to my face," and not the inbox. None of it. Just going, "Hey, like, I can't have a problem with every invoice. Like, we can't work together if there's a problem with every invoice. Something needs to changes, right?" Anyway, ask yourself. So anyway, that client was, if you looked at it face value, if I got that email, I'm like, I need to get rid of these people. But once you check out, once you go on your like job management software, or or like Zero or whatever, or MyOb, if you're a 65-year-old boomer, am I right? Funny story, I'll share this again. Someone said, oh, we're on MyOb. And I said, how old is your bookkeeper? 65? And he said, yes. Yes, that's exactly what happened. So anyway, I remember looking at like who like look at your top clients, like where's the most money come from, and one of them was these guys, and I was like, oh well, they're giving us $400,000 of work a year or something not too dissimilar to that, and all I'm struggling with is one response or a couple of responses from some emails about something that I can iron out pretty quickly. Sweet. So it's like sometimes when it's good to cross-reference that, because you look at it and you go, okay, sweet, they're actually a pretty big player. And we're actually making good money of them. I've just got this one problem. So don't be scared to, if someone's payment terms are creeping up, right? Like TLC creep, you got to creep, right? If someone's payment terms are creeping out of date, have that conversation with them. And I was sitting with one of our members the other day and we were just saying like, hey, it was a larger job, and the progress payment 1, 2, and 3. Like I think it was temps, undergrounds, and something else. I'm assuming it was like spider boards, like temp boards around the site or something like that. The payments were 30 days from end of month, so and it was 1.5 months late, 2.5 months late, 2 months late. So we're talking like 4 to 5 months before anything hit the account. And we're pretty much saying to them, hey, it's not good enough. Like, we're not going to pursue this unless this changes, right? So you're entitled to have those conversations, have the big conversations for sure. And especially if someone's dragging their payment terms out like that, and you've got like a $200,000 job. So you're going to be owed roughly $100,000 during the rough-in, and that $100,000 will come to you in 3 or 4 months' time. Probably not worth it. And do you have the cash flow or the cash in the bank to bank that? But ask yourself this question: who are my top 3 clients and where did I meet them? So when I was reflecting on this, I was, this is just me personally. I'm not saying this doesn't work. Like I'm just saying none of my top clients were met through a cold call, right? So that might be different to you. And this is why it's important to ask yourself the question. Interestingly enough, one of our members chucked on Facebook, hey, just doing my electrical business, looking to grow the company. Anyone got any work, just reach out. One of his friends reached out. He's got $160,000 cost plus job and counting, right? So it's like, who would have thought Facebook did anything of use to society? It was like, cool. Another one of our members was a bit quiet, sent out a text campaign. In other words, like, hey, you're a bit quiet at the moment. Anyone got any work? He probably wouldn't say quiet. He'd probably say like, we've got some gaps to fill. And he got $35,000 worth of work off that text campaign within a week, maybe. Another one of our members put out a text campaign, crickets, just some unsubscribes, just like 30 or 40, stop messaging me. So it's like, I think the big thing with this is, and my encouragement to you is, you don't know where your next big client is going to come from, but you've got to dabble across like, lead generation sort of stuff, whether you join a BNI or you make some cold calls or actually follow up that friend of a friend who works at the school. And because once you've got that warm chip in, it really changes everything. But reflecting on me and my biggest 3 clients, like our biggest client was this, one of the best people. I would do a podcast on him at some point into the future. Like one of the best people you've ever met. I think that as a family they were worth like $800 million or something like that. And just a top person, invoices paid every fortnight. You wouldn't get better work or better people to work with. And from that, how did I meet that person? It was like I had a bit of a warm in through my old boss. He was aircon, and I was electrical, and he did not dabble in electrical at all. So there was no like untoward activity there. But I had like a bit of an in, and I made a phone call, and and then we got some work through that, and it was a bit of like a it wasn't quite cold, but it wasn't quite hot. It was like a maybe lukewarm phone call. And, that's where that one came from. Another one, I was, just chatting to some guy randomly while I was fitting an isolator off, like a bit of a small job. Turns out he ran maybe the biggest bakery in Sydney, New South Wales. I don't know if they're the biggest now. I mean, I'm no baker expert. Probably Baker's Delight would be bigger than them, but they do a lot of a lot of Woolworths baking and stuff like that as well now. So met them just randomly chatting to someone, got along with them. And they were like, I didn't even know he was the boss at that point. So that was a bit of like a, a couple of like one cold, one warm, just like one small job led into something. Another client I got back from Europe and just volunteered at my friend's gym, just throwing some cables around and things like that. And the builders watched me and saw me and were like, oh, can you come and quote this, quoted that. It's just funny, I should actually bust this quote out. I think I quoted like $4,500 for their first job, which I swear to God, if I did it today, it'd be like a $14,000, no, probably like a $10,000 to $12,000 job. Just like completely no idea, completely undercooked the quote, completely no idea. And 100% lost money on that. But over the course of 10 to 15 years of working with that builder, we would have made that back 100-fold. So 1,000-fold, 2,000-fold, 3,000-fold. But ask yourself the question, who are your best clients and where do they come from? Chances are it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag. It's going to be like, oh, I called that person, or I bumped into that person, or I did that small job for that person on that one day, and I didn't realize they owned something. We went over here and did that, then they chipped me in over here. And I think you'll find it's much more organic than you sort of may realize. But it's also good to realize that you don't know. Like, it might be a Facebook post, it might be an Insta post, it might be it might be a cold call, it might be something, it might be a chip in here, it might be something there. And you got to look at yourself and be like, okay, what's history telling me? And this is how I found these people. And you got to take your opportunities. So I was speaking to someone the other day who's an aircon technician or refrigeration lord, and I was speaking to him, and he's got one of his clients is building a house and they're engaging the aircon person directly. He's gone there to quote, and I was like, speak to the builder. Just ask the builder, how can we quote some of your work? Speak to the other trades on site. Get down on your knees, begging, please, Eric Clapton style. Please, baby, give me some work, baby. Give me don't do that. But take your opportunities, right? So in a world where you're going to want to grow your team a little bit larger, you're going to need some more work. In a world where you need some more work, you need to meet some new people. So join that running club. Join that community thing, volunteer somewhere, go to a dad's group, organize some beer somewhere, organize a smoothie and a swim, like get around and learn, meet new people. That's really important. Meet new people and work out ways where you can meet new people. And so in the lead generation, finding workspace, ask yourself the question, where did I meet my existing, what do I mean by top clients? Do they know anyone? Heck, am I taking all my opportunities? And what else can I do to push forward? So happy hunting for work, and to wrap it up, don't get too desperate, because don't drop your pants or something like that. And every quiet time, the busy times, it doesn't take much just to turn it around and get busy again. So keep the faith, Bon Jovi style, rock on and rock out. And if you need us, you know where we are. We are Sparky Coach. See you guys.